Good afternoon. Today we're going to talk about preparing for a presentation. There are three main points we want to look at. We want to determine the speech topic. We want to know what we're going to talk about. We want to practice the speech over and over to make it as good as possible. And we need to do some things in preparation for the day of the speech. There's a few things you want to take care of. The first thing we need to do is we need to determine the speech topic. We need to do some research. We need to find a topic that we find interesting and possibly use a planning method that we find interesting. The proper planning method could be how it's organized, how it's set up, how you actually deliver the presentation itself. And then we need to determine the audience. We need to determine if it's our manager we're talking to, if it's coworkers, customers, and then we need to gauge their interest and understanding. We don't want to make it so simple that it's not challenging, yet we don't want to make it so hard that they can't understand it. Next thing we need to look at is we need to define our speaking points. We need to determine what is needed to convey the message. What points do we need to make our audience understand what it is we're talking about? Determine how many points will be necessary, and then determine which ones are the most important. Now, the reason we determine the most important is we need to determine the order of the points. We need to start with the most important point. We need to make sure that while our audience is still fresh and they're still listening, that they're going to hear the most important part. And then end with the least important, because your audience may be starting to fade away on you and you want to have that as the last item. The second thing we want to look at is practicing doing your speech. We want to do it in front of a mirror. This will help us to see what our audience will see. We can rehearse it over and over, and that way we get really good at it. And if it's possible to practice it at the venue, so you can practice it in the physical room that you'll be in, you can visualize people sitting in chairs, you just get more familiar with the area. If you get more familiar with your venue, it will help you to become good at giving a speech. Another way to practice your speech is to be familiar with your venue and surroundings. Know about any type of distractions, any loud noises, if there's traffic outside, if there's a window and there's things going on outside that's going to distract you or your listeners, be aware of that. And also videotape your speech. This way you can see what your audience is going to see. Another way of looking at it, you can look at any type of negative body gestures. You can determine if any changes may need to be made to your speech, and also if you've got the correct length. If you've got a time limit that you need to set, making sure you're following it. The third thing we want to look at is preparation for the day of the speech. It's very important that you have a backup plan. You might want to bring some visual aids or make sure that there's a dry erase board just in case. Because if you forget your note cards, or if your power goes out, or if you have computer problems, it'd be really nice to have something that you could still use in case all this happens. Another thing we want to look at is making sure that you get enough sleep the night before the speech. 7 to 8 hours is recommended. This is the only way you're going to look fresh and you're going to look alert. And you can also the night before plan out your attire, what you're going to wear. You need to know if a suit is required. You need to know if jeans and a t-shirt is acceptable, and if a suit is required, making sure that it's clean and properly pressed, and that your shirt is properly pressed, that you're wearing the correct tie, and so on and so forth. Another thing you want to look at is you want to make sure you use a restroom before the speech. You don't know how long the speech will take, and if you've got other people making speeches in front of you, you don't want to be running into some issues with the restroom. Because if you have to use the restroom and you're in the middle of your speech, you could be distracted and you will definitely not be at the top of your speech. Of course, having a glass of water in case you get a little bit of dry mouth from nervousness, and sometimes you can stop and take a glass of water and that'll help clear your thoughts, and then you can start fresh again. And another thing that I'll look at is make sure you always have a positive attitude. Make sure this will help you come across with more confidence, and possibly if you're having a presentation that some people may object to, you may get some criticism. So make sure you're staying cool and you're not letting that distract you. And don't read strictly from your note cards. Make sure you have some of it memorized. Use them as notes for something to trigger your memory of facts and some information, and because sometimes this could come across as being very boring to your audience. So in conclusion, the first thing we need to do is determine the speech topic. We need to determine what it is we're going to talk about. Secondly, we need to practice doing our speech. We need to do it over and over in front of a mirror. We need to do it under a videotape. We need to see what our audience is going to see. And lastly, we need to make proper preparation for the day of the speech. You need to make sure you've got the proper clothes and everything is laid out for you for the speech. Thank you and have a great day.